Well, the United Nations is planning to introduce a global digital ID system that is linked to individuals' bank accounts. They released a brief titled A Global Digital Compact Reforms to the International Financial Architecture and the Future of Outer Space Governance. In the brief, it reads, digital IDs linked with bank or mobile money accounts can improve the delivery of social protection coverage and serve to better reach eligible beneficiaries. Digital technologies may help to reduce leakage errors and costs in the design of social protection programs. So basically, they're trying to say, look, you want this because it means you're going to get your Social Security or your disability or your unemployment money faster. But what they don't tell you is they'll be able to monitor everything you buy. So interestingly, I can see a lot of people on the right actually kind of agreeing with this idea. Normally with these types of things, it's people on the left. But on this one, I mean, look, if they say, hey, we're going to give you welfare, so we just want to make sure you don't spend it on things we don't approve of, that might bring in people from a different political side of the aisle who might start agreeing with this type of stuff. And I think that's kind of the big agenda here, is to get everybody on board. With us now is someone who has been extensively covering digital IDs, the World Economic Forum, and the global governance agenda on her show, The Mel K Show. Mel, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It is so important that people are speaking about this. I'm so honored to be here. This is a long time coming. The American people have been really held in the dark about this agenda for a very long time. They are kind of at their end game. And like you said, people are being deceived as to what is going on and why, and then also told that it's for their own good and it's for convenience and this is all this good stuff, when really it's really the opposite of that.
What is this digital ID going to even look like? I mean, a lot of us have iPhones, and we do have to hold up our iPhones, to our faces in order to unlock them, right? Or they used to do the thumbprint. Like, what's the future looking like with these digital IDs?
Well, if you look through this document, it's called Our Common Agenda. It actually came out in 2021. But really, what people have been deceived a lot about is the connection between the World Economic Forum and their multinational global public private partnership, which really makes a lot of this work. A lot of these companies that are involved in the tech side and on the back end of this are partners of the World Economic Forum. In 2019, they had been working together for years, but in 2019, before COVID, the World Economic Forum and the UN put out a joint agreement that they were going to team up to fast forward the 2030 agenda, also known as the Sustainable Development Goals, which is what a lot of this is about. So in that document, it goes through iterations of this digital ID to the point where they are actually talking about surveillance under your skin, meaning that there would be microchips, which is happening in some countries. Sweden and other places are doing pilot programs. But essentially, it is a full track and trace surveillance system, not different than they already have in communist China, and under the guise of sustainable development goals. In particular, this one, if people know about the sustainable development goals and what that is, and Agenda 2030, that is number 16. And it's about a digital compact, global digital compact and equity in the digital space worldwide. But at the end of the day, it's about a track and trace kind of ledgered surveillance system that would be behavior modification and have an aspect to it that is punitive.
Right. Yeah, they sell this like this is going to make your life better. I mean, that's how they sell it, right? Like this will make life more convenient. I mean, imagine if you just had a microchip under your skin, you wouldn't have to remember which medications or which vaccines you've taken. You just show
Right.
that, they scan it, and boom, it shows up the chart for your doctor. And that way you don't have to be transferring records back and forth. So they sell it like this is a good thing for you. And a lot of people buy that. I mean, it's just like with the iPhone. I've got one, and it's just
Right.
difficult to get away from it. When I
Right.
think about, man, this thing's tracking my location. It's got my face on file. It's,
Yeah.
all this is happening, but it's so convenient. How do I get rid of it? And that's, I think, how they're getting us into this new way. But let's talk about the real dangers of this. So let's say, okay, yeah, you've got this microchip that's going to say all of your medical records, including your vaccines. You've got a digital ID that's somehow connected to your banking account. So it makes it easy. You can just easily get your money from the government. You can easily spend your money, right? So everything just seems really, really convenient. But there's some serious downsides potentially to this.
Yeah, well, the first thing that people and then the American people really have to understand this, because if we go into this, there is no coming back. And that is
Yeah.
really, really important for people to understand. This is being fueled. It is my belief right now that there's a billionaire oligarchy in America. They're pretty, you see who they are. We got the Larry Finks. He's very involved in this. He's also on the board of the World Economic Forum and involved in China and many other things. So he's one of the people. So this is attached to, of course, the central bank digital currency, Executive Order 14067. And that is also attached to, which many people didn't pay attention to, in the National Defense Authorization Act. Joe Biden and his group, I believe that they're more concerned with the globalist citizen, goals, the sustainable goals. They often bring up 2030 and that they're trying to do that, which is what this is about. They have a summit coming up in September where Joe Biden is expected to sign on to this new Our Common Agenda, which has this in it. But what they are really doing here, and it's been developed, it was ID 2020. It was the Gates Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, World Economic Forum, UN, and a bunch of partners of the private Western central banks. So this would also include, your money wouldn't be your money anymore. It'll be programmable tokens. Instead of money, basically, it would be on a ledger system, which was in that National Defense Authorization Act, was the money to fund basically a blockchain to put every American citizen, every citizen of the world, honestly, onto a blockchain system. And that would also include all of their other alliances. So they have an alliance with the World Health Organization. They have an alliance with the World Bank, with the IMF. They have an alliance with the also with the IPCC. So this digital ID would not just include your vaccine status and your health records, but also there was an executive order about biometric data. So that would be on there as well. Your what you spend your money on would be on there. So there's the ESG score, digital track and trace of also your carbon usage. So they signed on in Glasgow, the Biden group with Kerry and Gore, to something called Climate Trace, which would be kind of your climate score. And then they also have another whole level of that, which is the World Health Organization just had their meeting where they, the Biden administration and his representatives that he sent there from our nation, were actually pushing for these amendments that would allow the World Health Organization to call a pandemic. Once called, then that would also interact with our biometric track and trace controlled app, financial, whatever model that they're doing at that iteration with the digital ID. And you would be basically all of our rights in terms of our rights by the Constitution Bill of Rights would be superseded by the emergency declaration. So at that point, you have to realize everything that they're doing here is to consolidate power into this group of people. And as the people at the top, Klaus Schwab or Gutierrez or, Tedros or Noah Harari, when they explain it on stage and all these technocrats stand up and clap, they're clapping about something which really is about behavior modification, control, and surveillance, and sustainable development goals. We hear a lot about that, but I would beg to ask people to look at them and maybe think sustainable. What does that mean? And sustainable for who? And then in order to have those goals, they need to be surveilling every human basically on the planet for consumption of everything, of anything. That's also animals and natural resources. But then you go to the next level of that, and it's really not sustainable, is not really the right word. It actually should be predictable, controllable, manageable. And then the next question is by whom? And that is not the
Right.
United States of America. And this central bank digital currency is not going to be American. And we all know that they want a one-party system, it appears, coming up. But I would say to both left and right, Republican and Democrat, that are picking some side, that control that they want, that one party, would really be this globalist governance model. And I don't believe they're hiding it. And I believe that this is the way that they are going to implement that.
They're not hiding it at all. They're putting it right out there. It's just like that whole "you will own nothing and you will be happy." That
Yeah.
sounded like a conspiracy theory. I mean, it's so absurd. It really sounds made up until you see it on their website, on the World Economic Forum's website. You see it in their commercials straight out of their own mouths. They're putting it out there. They're not hiding it. They're saying, this is the future and you're going to like it. You're going to like not owning anything. You're going to like that we can control every single thing that you do, that we're watching you, we're big brothering you. to a level that is, I never thought that we would see this in our lifetimes. I really thought this was like a futuristic dystopian movie from the year 2020, 2230, not
Yeah,
2030, but 2230, right?
right.
Where it's
Well,
like
we saw a
robots everywhere.
minority. Right, we
Right.
saw
Yeah. Like Minority
Minority
Report.
Report. Remember? And they're like,
Yes.
that could never happen. But it is that. And that's the scary part. I'm glad you brought up that there is a very scary side to this, which is there's a lot of prediction in this, a predictive that they will be able to see every move you make, everything you spend, your carbon allowance, where you travel, what you do. And then there's a punitive side, like in China, they can turn off that money. They can,
Right.
and there is a lot of people were paying attention to the IRS executive order about the 87,000 agents and not enough attention to the AI aspects in that executive order about the IRS. So everything would be basically, out of your control. And we deserve to have privacy of how we spend our money, where we go, where we travel, what we do, how we raise our kids, because the other side of this is a social credit score. And that is what Gutierrez also in our common agenda and this meeting that Biden is one of the hosts of in September. It's the summit of the futures. One of the big things is I verify, and this they're said that UN and the World Economic Forum and all their partners and the NGOs, they put out that there's a information pollution and misinformation, disinformation,
Oh,
all of that.
gosh.
So there's an aspect to this, and they're working with Interpol, which people should know should have no authority over anyone, but they're working with Interpol to implement this, that you can actually be and this is happening all over the world, not as much in America, but for wrong think, basically, or saying the wrong thing online or social media or any of that, it is worked into this digital ID system for punitive damages that will happen without you knowing. You'll wake up and like it happens in China now, and you won't be able to get a subway ticket, or you won't be able to buy gas, you know?
Right. And the worst part about this is that these are all unelected officials. We don't even know really who's running it. This is not like I mean, we see the face of Klaus Schwab or something, but ultimately there's a lot of players behind this, and they're not elected officials. And the worst, and so then the question is, well, then why would we have to go along with it, right? Like if let's say the United States says, well, we don't even want to be a part of this, we're going to reject this. But it's in my viewpoint, that would almost be impossible to do because it's about money, and the players who are controlling the money are the ones who are able to implement something like this. And because the world is so global, you've got these large corporations that are doing business all around the world, and they're going to be subject to, well, look, we don't want to do business with you unless you're going to implement this new
Right.
thing, right? And then
Mhm.
that corporation, which is an American-based corporation, but if they want to do business in China, they want to do business around the world, right? They need to adopt this new whatever it might be, and then they force their customers in the United States to also start using and following their rules. And if you just get more companies involved, if you get the people providing the goods and the services, if you get them on board, you don't even need the elected officials to agree to it because the people
Right.
will
Well,
have to do it in order to continue consuming those goods and services.
yeah, I mean that's the model. Actually, the main architect of this. I mean, I fully believe that we have a billionaire oligarchy that is controlling a lot of things in America that really don't go through our Constitution, our Bill of Rights. Larry Fink, shortly before the who runs BlackRock, obviously, but he's also on the board of the World Economic Forum and was big behind the ESG score and the Great Reset, and he works freely in CCP China. He had a meeting shortly before COVID where he talked about going direct to the people. And if you walk it backwards to now, what he meant, and what I believe fully is part of this whole plan, is to subjugate our government and our elected officials, which then is even worse for us because they're really supposed to be representing we the people. And we're not even being consulted at this point on any of this. But what they're saying is they will use the corporations and the banks to control behavior and skip all the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, even the Congress and the Senate, and go right to us, because this is what we're seeing with the woke ideology and a lot of the stuff that's happening. It's not happening through a process of the people having a vote or a say. And that's why the rest of the world is really counting on America. I mean, there's billions of people that are awake to this, I believe, but they're counting on America because we are blessed with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and that we, the people in America, are the government. And yet we're in
Right.
a place where we feel like we have no power. Maybe not in DC. I don't believe I do believe that these multinational corporations, they call them the global public private partnership, public not being us, public being those who control us. And
Right.
basically, what they are doing, and the world and the banks are at the top of it. What they are doing is really making us feel a certain way, and at the same time, we have to realize we do have a lot of power, and maybe it's time that we, the people in our own states and local communities, start weeding out this stuff because they had to do over 20 years. This actually goes back to even the announcement by George Bush about all of this when he became president. Is it's slowly but surely been implemented, but the local community is where you can see this. Look for sustainable development goals in your local community. Look for what contracts they're putting in. Are there World Economic Forum global leaders or global changers or UN officials that are meddling in your county? Because it's really the governors and the local legislatures in America right now that have, I think, the power. And that means that we, the people, have to make sure that they're doing what we want.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to fight back on this because it's going to have to be maybe the federal government, but like you said, probably more of the local governments pushing back and saying you can't do business with us if you're going to implement certain things. Like right now, I don't know why governments aren't standing up and saying you can't do business with us if you're going to be doing these ESG scores because they're
Right.
clearly not actually based on sustainability. I mean, you've got companies that are very green and they're given really low ESG scores just because they don't like the politics of the founder of that company, like Tesla, right? They give Tesla a really crappy score compared to a big oil guzzling I mean I even think it was at Chevron that had like a higher
It
ESG
was
score than
Exxon.
Tesla.
Yeah.
Exxon, yeah, I mean just it doesn't make sense. It's really based on politics, and that's what's so scary about this is that if they don't like you, they just determine that well you're a pariah on society and so then you're saying, well, what's sustainability? I live a completely green life, right? And they say, well, but your ideas aren't sustainable. And so therefore, you engage in unsustainable wrong think. And so we're going to give you
Right.
a really low score and then you're screwed. You can't get loans or you can't whatever it is that however they're choosing to limit you. I mean, we've seen this throughout the pandemic when they were limiting, cutting people off from PayPal. You can't even use monetary services because they don't like your ideas. They don't like what you stand for, right? We
Yeah.
see this and it's escalating. So this is going to be really tough to push back on unless governments stand up and say, because we the people could do as much. We could say, okay, I'm not gonna consume that. I'm not gonna do business. I'm not gonna shop at any stores that. But that's going to
Right.
be difficult to do. It's almost needing the governments to stand up and say, you want to do business with us? And it would be best if it was the federal government. I mean, if the federal government said you want to do business on the United States shores, we're about freedom and we're not going to do this stuff. So you cannot put our citizens into this system. But it seems
Yeah.
like our people are bought off just as,
Yes.
and they're
Yeah. I
into
mean,
this, a lot of them.
yeah, the current government that's right now, I believe, we are our country. In my opinion, we have been captured by this global public-private partnership of the multinational corporations, and I call them the banking cartel. And frankly, it does appear that our government is not necessarily working for us, and they're going for this thing. It's gone through many iterations, but now it's called global governance. And everyone out there should be looking, and not just at the World Economic Forum. Look at the IMF and the World Bank and the World Health Organization and the UN and a lot of Joe Biden's executive orders that he magically wrote overnight. A lot of the language is the same, and a lot of
Yeah.
these people are involved in this, and it's a lot of it is about a transfer of wealth. A lot of the climate stuff is about a transfer of wealth. We have solutions to most of our problems, and again, no matter who is president, they're never implemented in a way that does change things, it seems, for the better, especially within our borders. And a
Yeah.
lot of what Trump's plan was about rebuilding our infrastructure and our manufacturing and our banking system and all of this stuff. Well, we should still want that, but it just doesn't seem like people that are in our government that should be investing and doing positive things within our borders are paying much attention to what's inside America. And I believe that it's this whole globalist push, and we the people of the United States just really have to get to a place where the divisions that they're causing. Because on my show I follow the money a lot, and you'd be surprised. There's about 10 billionaires, and we know all their names that are aligned with this entire program of global governance. and the UN and all of these groups that are involved, Council of Foreign Relations and Rockefeller, and they're all involved. And at the same time, we are watching this go, and we're kind of sitting here thinking, why are governments not doing anything? And it's not just America, it's all over. And I think we have a lot more power than we're exercising right now. And like you said, you people should be running for office and stuff, but they should also be looking at what is happening in their local politics, because the infiltration goes deep, and this was a long game. And we really have to fight back, especially because there is a punitive side to the central bank digital currency. And you are right, they are really pushing back with the censorship, and people are getting stopped at airports and being searched at this point already. And imagine when you can't even buy a plane ticket because they didn't like
Yeah.
something you said on Facebook, because Meta and Google are very involved in this digital ID, and MasterCard. So we really should also be calling out exactly what's happening here, and looking at some of these big corporations that seem to own our nation, and wonder how this happened and how to undo it.
It's very scary, that's for sure. And so we'll definitely continue talking about this. But Mel K covers us a lot on her show, a lot of the global governance agenda, which you could check out at themelkshow.com. Mel, thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
joining us and giving us some of
Thank
your
you.
insight on this.
Appreciate it. Thanks.